Good day, good morning, good evening. It's 1 o'clock here in Geneva. No, it's 4 o'clock here in Geneva. We have so many of our events at 1 o'clock, so pardon that I misspoke. It's 4 o'clock here in Geneva. And so we begin the first of two briefings that we are going to have on the documents that are tabled at COP4 and specifically at COP4.1 coming up from the 1st to the 5th of November. My name is Claudia ten Hafe, and today I'm joined again by some of my colleagues from the Secretariat, namely Marianne Bailey, Capacity Building and Technical Assistance Program Manager Officer, Sandra Rucker, Administrative Officer, and also Lara Onibene, Legal and Program Officer. You will see each of my colleagues in turn in a moment as we take you through this briefing today. I would also like to note that the briefing today at 4 o'clock is being repeated, the exact same briefing tomorrow morning and on Tuesday, 21st of September at 10 o'clock. And it is done in this way so that we can reach as many parties as possible and as many stakeholders as possible in the different time zones. So should you want to pass on the message that your colleagues might be able to profit from the briefing tomorrow, please pass that on. It will be the exact same briefing. Having said that, please note that this briefing is recorded and we will be making all the materials of this briefing as well as the recording available tomorrow afternoon on our website. Again, if you'd like to revisit a part of it or if you'd like to pass it on to colleagues for their preparation and information. So with that, let us begin. And like the next slide, thank you very much. Here you see that our briefing today will be the following four roughly components. Firstly, to introduce to you the agenda, the annotated agenda, a document called Issues and Information for the attention of the COP, and also a critical information document, namely the list of documents, so that you have a good overview of what has been prepared for you and your preparations for COP4. But specifically what this briefing will be all about are the documents that are opened at COP4.1. And here Sandra will take us through some of the budget-related documentation, noting, of course, that a full briefing on budget is scheduled for another time, so we will go into much more detail then. Thereafter, Marianne and I will take you through a number of agenda items, or 3 agenda items under item 4, namely the GEF, National Reporting and Effectiveness Evaluation. And then lastly, Lara will introduce the document that is prepared for you under item 7, namely the dates-related document, the date of the resumed meeting. With that as background, we can begin. And the next slide will firstly just show you our beautiful Minamata website, where we'd like to invite you to visit our dedicated webpage on all COP4 preparations. You can find it by pressing on decision making and then COP4, and you will see all of the different elements here. Today we will be talking about documents, so I've inserted a little arrow so that you can find your way quickly to that point on the website. Next slide. Just to recall that it has been decided that COP4 will convene in 2 segments, namely in what we've come to call 4.1 and 4.2. COP 4.1 will open online from the 1st to the 5th of November. That's coming up in 6 weeks. And then the COP will resume at a date that is still to be decided by the Conference of Parties, but is tentatively scheduled for the first quarter of 2022. And here you see the text that was included in the communication in April that was sent to all parties and stakeholders, and that you will also see repeated in some of our key documentation in terms of why this decision has been taken. Namely, it is a decision taken in the context of the COVID-19 epidemic and global situation, and so as to ensure that work can move forward, but also being mindful that it is a difficult context in the international global setting. And so here is just projected the agreement that was brought about, or that was reached by the Bureau to have the COP convene in 2 segments, as I detailed, the first to be conducted online from the 1st to the 5th of November. On the left-hand side of the slide, you will see the documents that give you the frame of COP4 and specifically also give you the frame for what is in COP4.1 as opposed to COP4.2. And so let me just name them, but we will go into them in some detail, namely the Provisional Agenda, which is document 1.4, the Annotated Provisional Agenda, which is an addenda to that document, and so it's document 4/1 add 1. We also have prepared a document called Issues and Information for the attention of the Conference of the Party at its 4th meeting. And lastly, there is the information document on the list of documents. Next slide. And here, let me first stop at the very first document, namely the Provisional Agenda, to highlight that the Provisional Agenda is for the entire COP4 meeting. In other words, all of these agenda items are put forward for the COP to consider to adopt at the beginning of COP4 of items to consider during its deliberations during the entire time of COP4. It starts as always with an opening, then item 2 has some organizational matters. Item 3 recalls that work is still to be done or to be completed on the rules of procedure before the COP. And then item 4 is the bulk of the work, the bulk of the technical and other work of the Minamata COP meetings present, because there are a number of items there from A to L. We also have item 5, which is the regular item on international cooperation and coordination, and thereafter a very important, pivotal item, in fact, that of program of work and budget. You will also see that item 7, which has usually been the dates of the next meeting, but given that we are now in these unusual circumstances and need to set also the date of the resumed meeting, this item has been slightly reworded to what you would have normally seen in our previous COPs, to dates of the resumed 4th meeting of the parties and venue and date of the 5th meeting. Then there are other matters, and then towards the conclusion is also the adoption of the meeting report and the closure of the meeting. Now, this particular agenda will be in some ways replicated both in terms of COP4.1 and 4.2, but I will take you step by step through so that it's very clear what will be opened and discussed at 4.1 versus what will only be opened and considered at 4.2. May I have the next slide, please? So to go into a little bit of detail of the annotated provisional agenda and also the second document, document 2, Issues and Information for the attention of the COP, we would like to invite you to look at these two documents together and have them as more or less your roadmap through our COP, our entire COP, but specifically for preparations in terms of which part of the work is in 4.1 versus which part of the work is in 4.2. I would like to draw your attention that they are basically mirror documents of each other. The one is more set out in table form so that you can see not only the overview of items, agenda items, but also that you can easily see which documents refer to which agenda item. And the other one is set out more in narrative text that you can follow all the way through. In that document, document 2, there's also a section right at the very end of some items that do not fit into any particular agenda item, but these are work moving forward at COP5 and so on that the COP may wish to be informed about. But let me come back to what is in front of you now for COP4, namely the annotated provisional agenda and also the issues and information. And just to point your attention specifically to Annex 2 of the annotated agenda, and I will display it in a minute, but that is the tentative schedule of work for 4.1. And hopefully that will give you some clarity about what we will do on which day of 4.1, but also will show you all the agenda items which will only be opened at 4.2. But in a nutshell, as seen here on the slide, item 6 will be opened, that is the program of work and budget. Item 7 will be opened so that the dates of the resumed 4th meeting can be decided upon. And these are the only 2 agenda items that are currently foreseen to have decisions attached to them. But then also 3 other items are opened, namely the item on the GEF, specifically on the replenishment of the GEF, and we will speak about this in a moment. but also on national reporting, and specifically the draft reporting guidance on reporting, and lastly on effectiveness evaluation. And as is noted in the goal text at the bottom of the slide, all other items, all other remaining agenda items will be opened at COP4.2. May I also just point your attention to the little box where there's an asterisk, because it could be, the Secretariat foresees it, that if there is a necessity to amend or add on to the annotated provisional agenda or the issues and information for the attention of the conferences document, because of any other information that you might need in the second segment, then these documents will be updated. But at the moment, all of these documents have been prepared in such a way that they are useful for you for COP4.1 and COP4.2. I may have the next slide, please. Here, it is slightly small, I do apologize, but this is a straight screenshot of the schedule of work that is foreseen, tentative schedule of work that is foreseen for COP4.1. So let me just, it is available in the annex of the annotated agenda, which is available already on our website. But may I take you through it in narrative very quickly. After the opening and some of the organizational matters, the first major item that the COP will consider is that of program of work and budget in plenary on Monday. But there are two other items that will also be opened in the second session of the Monday plenary, and that is the date of the resumed meeting and also the effectiveness evaluation agenda item. The COP will not meet in plenary on Tuesday, but it will meet in plenary again on Wednesday. And here, the national reporting item and also the replenishment item under Global Environment Facility will be opened. And on Thursday of November, of the online segment, the COP is not expected to meet in plenary, but it will meet on plenary on Friday to consider the outcome of the budget discussions, to consider the outcome of the decision on the resumed meeting, and also to adopt the report of this meeting. And then in normal circumstances, a closure of the meeting would have been foreseen, but in our case now, the meeting would be adjourned so that it can be resumed for the second segment at a later stage. We will take you in detail through all of this, so please be assured that you will have all of this information at your fingertips, and in fact you can already open this document if you'd like to follow along. Going to the next slide. Just to show you that our documents are up since 20th of September. They are available on our website, so please go to documents as projected here, and you can sort either by working documents or by information document, and then you can find all of the documents below. We've also put a little arrow next to the select all in case you would like to download them all together, or you can select the ones you would like to download. I want to draw your attention to a very small but maybe very important part, which is that each document at the bottom of which you will, or not for each document, for each document that will be opened at COP4.1, you will see a little annotation like you see the bubble projected here that says COP4.1. In other words, all documents that will be opened at COP4.1 are indicated this way. If a document does not have a small COP4.1 attached to it, it is expected that that document is only going to be opened in the second segment. This does not mean that the document might not also still be relevant for the second segment. It is just to highlight for you the first set of limited documents to pay detailed attention to in preparation of the meeting in November. And just to recall that, of course, the budget documents have already been available to you for some time. But with that, we could move right into the briefing. And if I could have the next slide, which is the agenda item 6, budget-related things. And if I could ask my colleague, Sandra, to take over, please.
Claudia, Sandra is having some connectivity issue, so if you could consider continuing. Thank you.
Okay. Let me just draw your attention firstly to the fact there will be a dedicated budget session ahead of 4.1, namely on the 18th of October. So today we are not going into very much detail on the budget related documents. That detail will be there in a longer session from 12 to 2 Geneva time on the 18th of October. But here we would just like to ensure that you are aware that there are 3 critical documents for you to be aware of related to program of work and budget, namely document 424, as well as INF 21 and INF 22. All of these documents have been available for some time. They need to be posted 90 days before the COP opens, and so have been available since the 2nd of August. But please have a look to find them if you haven't had a chance to look at them yet. And just projected here is just the header of the main document to look at, the working document 424, but also to show you that INF 21 and 22. 21 is information on financial matters. This is a regular document that the Secretariat makes available to the COP to show what has happened budget and finance-wise for the preceding biennium and any other information even for the biennium preceding that as necessary. And then let me also draw your attention specifically to INF 22, which is the program of work and budget activity fact sheets. This is quite a lengthy document, but it gives you detail on each of the different activities foreseen in the program of work of the Minamata Convention looking forward for the biennium 22-23. So this document 22 in particular needs to be read next to the document 24 that sets out the main narrative of that work. If I could have the next slide, please. Thank you. In terms of the process of how the program of work and budget will be discussed at COP4.1, let me just highlight here that you saw perhaps, or hope you saw some of the schedule of work to show that on Monday in plenary, the documents will be presented in detail. These are the documents proposed for the budget for 2022 and 2023. And then Friday it is expected that a decision would be adopted on the budget for the 2022 budget and perhaps even parts of the 2023 budget. The understanding is that the remainder of the budget could be only concluded once the second segment of the COP has concluded. What happens between Monday when the information is presented, including the draft decision that is part of the document, and Friday? Well, a contact group will be established. This contact group will begin work on Tuesday. The contact group is for parties of the convention. It does not include any observers. We'd like to highlight that contact groups always, not only now in an online setting, are only in English. There is no interpretation for the contact group into the other UN languages. Having said that, it is of course clear that the plenary sessions are all going to be interpreted fully. We would like to highlight to parties that there is no limitation on the number of delegates to attend the contact group and or that would like to request to speak. So provision has been made for sufficient number of credentials or login details to participate fully in the contact group. I'd like to just draw your attention also here to just 2 further documents that will not be presented or discussed at 4.1, but that you might want to peruse in terms of background information on international cooperation and coordination. That is document 423. And also, if you'd like to have a look at what has happened so far and been implemented by the Secretariat with its parties and stakeholders, please have a look at document 419. Again, not a document that will be presented, but it may give you quite a bit of background information also necessary to the consideration of the budget in terms of what has happened and also what is planned going forward. So this is documents 423 and 419. I leave it at that so that you may find my wonderful budget and program of work colleagues on the 18th of October to discuss then and to be briefed further on the different aspects of the budget and the program of work. Lastly, just to indicate also that there is an online budget forum that has opened a couple of days ago. Parties should have received their credentials to this online budget forum, and in there it is possible to post questions or queries that we can already begin answering and helping you through the documentation. So please make use of the online budget forum, and should you not have your credentials as parties, please reach out to us at the Secretariat so that we can ensure that you have all of the information at hand to enter this forum. With that, I'd like the next slide, please. And we will delve into the different agenda items for Agenda 4, which is matters for consideration and or action by the Conference of Parties. And may I hand over to Marianne to take us through the first part. Over to you.
Thank you, Claudia, and thank you to all our participants for tuning into this information session today. I think most of you know that the financial mechanism of the Minamata Convention is made up of two parts: the Global Environment Facility and the specific international program, which provides direct capacity building and technical assistance support to eligible parties. So in document 4/10, we present information on the 8th replenishment of the Global Environment Facility Trust Fund. And this is of critical importance to our parties because this is where the funding for the Minamata Convention related projects under the GEF would be negotiated and established for the 4-year period, which begins next year. So we have two documents on this. One is a meeting document and one is an information document. And in the next slide, please, I'll give you a bit more background on the replenishment. So the document 4/10 is designed to give our parties a really thorough understanding of the replenishment process of the GEF and specifically how it relates to the Minamata Convention. So the replenishment discussions are ongoing. They have already started early this year, and they will continue throughout this year and conclude next spring and summer. I'll give you a more detailed timeline in just a moment. But the negotiations are underway within the GEF Assembly, and they will determine, again, the resource allocations, but also the programming directions for GEF 8. And then the GEF Council would take up the outcomes of those deliberations in a decision that would open the 8th replenishment period at the end of June 2022. And each replenishment period is a 4-year cycle. So that would, the beginning of the 4-year cycle of GEF 8 would be starting in July of 2022 next year. And the graphic on the bottom of your screen, we just wanted to show this because this is how the resources were allocated to different focal area windows in GEF 7. And you can see a bit over to the right-hand side is the chemical and waste focal area. And that is where the bulk of the Minamata Convention resources lie. So in GEF 7, that was just over 15% of the total GEF 7 funding envelope for that 4-year period. Next slide, please. So, great, thank you. So in our document 4/10, we provide a number of details, but including the details on the replenishment timeline. So there are a number of meetings of the replenishment participants, and these meetings, parties would be parties and governments that are participating in the replenishment discussions would prepare for these meetings through their national processes. So there is actually one coming up at the end of this month, the second replenishment meeting, and that will discuss the second draft of the strategic positioning and programming directions document and other matters. And those documents are posted online, and I'll give you the link in a moment. But those are the documents from which we are drawing the information for these COP documents. And then a very important third meeting in January of next year will decide on the final strategic positioning and programming directions. So we would like to make sure you're aware of all these meetings and the timing of them and how they are wrapping up next year. And that is why the Bureau felt it was very important to take this matter up at COP4.1. Next slide, please. So in addition to the meeting document, we have an information document that sets forth the current drafts. So that is the drafts that were posted by the GEF for the upcoming replenishment meeting, the second one. And we are not providing all the documents, but we are providing in the annex to the information document, the GEF 8 programming directions document and the strategic positioning framework document. These are both quite lengthy documents. So in our cover note to Inf 8, we've sort of described where you can find the most relevant information that is pertinent to the Minamata Convention. And for the full set of documents, the web link is there. And I want to emphasize these are not Secretariat documents. These are not COP4 documents. The link at the bottom of your screen is the documents prepared by the GEF for the second replenishment meeting. And we do hope that you will find these helpful and instructive for the discussion at COP4.1. And in the next slide, just to show you what is expected to happen, or what the document suggests could happen, is that the COP may wish to take note of the information in the document regarding the timeline, the funding priorities, and the draft programming directions that are in deliberation for the GEF 8 replenishment, and they may wish to further make use of this information in the context of their national processes relative to the replenishment. And in the annotated agenda, you can see that parties are invited to take the opportunity to make statements on the replenishment, and those would be captured in the report of the fourth meeting of the Conference of the Parties. And these statements could help inform the replenishment planning discussions, and including in the national processes related to the replenishment. So with that, I think I've described what's in our documents, and I turn it back to you, Claudia. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marianne. We go to the next agenda item, which is on national reporting, 4H. And here we'd like to draw your attention to document 417, namely the draft guidance for completing the national reporting format for the Minamata Convention on Mercury. And just to recall that there are two decisions that have been taken by the COP regarding reporting. The first one is COP1 regarding timing and format of reporting by parties. That's decision 1.8. But also at the most recent COP, COP3, the Conference of the Parties requested some work being done by the Secretariat on guidance for completing the national reporting format. And that is decision 313. Both are indicated here and also linked in case you'd like to go to the original wording of those two decisions. And just to recall that the Conference of the Parties is working on national reporting because Article 21, of course, provides for the fact that every party is to report to the Conference of Parties through the Secretariat on the measures taken to implement the provisions of the conventions and also on the effectiveness of such measures and also possible challenges in meeting the objective of the convention. Further to recall is that this format is consisting of 5 parts, Part A and E, and Part B of this format consists of 43 questions. Further regarding timing, short national reports are due every 2 years and full national reports are due every 4 years. By short national reports, we mean the 4 questions of the 43 that are marked by asterisks, and the full national reports means all the questions in Part B. As parties have submitted one set of short reports, in other words, for the 4 questions by asterisks, the Conference of the Parties requested the Secretariat to complete draft guidance for the full set of 43 questions so that it is easier to understand, or to make it easy to understand, to clarify the information that is being sought in all of those questions. I just want to highlight that when we do briefings on the questions, that we highlight that the draft guidance is not a manual for implementation. It is simply there to help clarify the information that's being sought in the format. This draft guidance was developed and you could read the full steps taken in its development, which also included collecting comments from parties and also stakeholders in the drafting of the guidance. All of that is available in the document 417. We bring this document to your attention at COP4.1, not necessarily to deliberate on the whole document or even to deliberate on the document, as that would be done at the second segment. But the reason we bring it forward at 4.1 is that the decision that was taken by the third meeting also included the encouragement to parties to use the draft guidance on a provisional basis to assist in preparing the full national reports that are due by the end of this year, namely by the 31st of December. Next slide. Many of you by name, I know, have joined us for the different and dedicated information sessions we have on the national guidance. But if you haven't, or if you have not yet been able to join, may I just invite you to go to our Minamata Online website. We have 4 sessions dedicated to the draft guidance and to national reporting to assist parties in completing their national reports by the due date. The first one was on the 7th of September. Then we had 2 deep dives into these questions, the 43 questions, on the 14th and 16th of September. All of the presentation materials and recordings are available to you on our website, but may I also put as a save the date into your diary that on the 22nd of November, we are available again in 2 different time slots. It's 40 days from the 22nd of November until the 31st, and should there be any other questions that you may have in completing the national reporting format, please know that we are ready for you then to help you in any way. But having said that, of course, please just simply reach out to the Secretariat should you have any trouble logging in or any other worry in terms of completing the reporting format. In other words, any substantive issue you may want to seek a better understanding on. But let me just state that the guidance provides suggested approaches for parties to consider in answering those questions. Next slide. Just as information also is that all the login credentials for the reports were sent to the national focal points that we have in our database. We have national focal points for almost all of our parties, but all of our parties have been contacted to activate their access to the online reporting tool. You see a picture of it presented here. Our online reporting tool has been open and available since the 7th of September. If you do not have the login credentials, please reach out to us because then it could be that perhaps we don't have the most current information of the national focal point, or perhaps some other reason why the information did not reach you. And just to say that we have had an excellent reporting rate for the short reports, namely 89% of parties have completed their short reports. And so hopefully the long reports, the full reports, will also have a very, very strong reporting rate. But with that, may I move to the next slide and take you to another agenda item that is being opened at COP4.1, although the main deliberations of this agenda item will be in 4.2. But this agenda item is the effectiveness evaluation, or the evaluation of the effectiveness of the Minamata Convention. As you can see displayed here, a number of documents have been prepared for this agenda item, namely document 4/18, which is the main document that has then 2 addenda, one on indicators and one on draft guidance for monitoring mercury and mercury compounds. And all of this is also further supplemented by 3 INF documents, again, one on indicators and one that gives the full text of the guidance that has been developed. Just to recall, it is Article 22 that calls on the convention to put in place the arrangements to conduct an evaluation of its effectiveness, beginning no later than 6 years of the entry into force of the convention. The COP has considered this agenda item at each of their meetings and has made progressive steps forward in its work in this regard. Most recently at COP3 in decision 10, as linked here, were 3 areas of work that have been asked to be done in the intervening time between COP3 and COP4. So therefore, our document 4/18 takes you through that work that has been asked to be completed, namely, on the one hand, the work on indicators. The decision asked for parties to put forward views on the indicators that have been developed for the effectiveness evaluation. The decision also requested the Secretariat to advance the work of drafting the guidance on monitoring. And this has also been an equally large endeavor over the last 2 years. And all of the information regarding draft guidance is available in the second addenda and also in 12. And further, the other areas of work were the advancement of 2 of the reports in the framework, namely, on the one hand, the Article 21 synthesis report, and on the other hand, the drafting of the trade, supply, and demand report. And the text in terms of the report on the advancement of drafting of these 2 reports is also available in document 4/18. So in other words, for this particular agenda item, we start at document 4/18 and then consider the addenda and other additional information documents alongside them. If I may take you to the next slide. To highlight one aspect in 4/18, which is that it also includes a section entitled Overview of Work Done Since the First Meeting and Remaining Areas of Work Needed by the Conference of the Party to put in place the framework and arrangements for evaluating the effectiveness of the Convention and to conduct its first evaluation. It's a very long heading, but it summarizes exactly what you will find in this section of the document. And so I'd like to draw your attention to it. Besides narrative text, there is a table that sets out the items that are meant to be developed and also sets out the progress that has been done in developing those items. And also in the last column on the very right, comments if there is work that remains to be done still to complete that element of the overall work that remains to be done for the conference to have put in place the framework and other arrangements for evaluating, for the first evaluation of the convention. The table is much too large to project here, and so you only see the top, but please go to page 5 onwards of that document to have a look there. I'd also like to draw your attention to one paragraph that you see in that part of the document, namely that following the third meeting of the conference, some parties initiated informal consultations on items that remained unresolved at the third meeting and were not part of the work provided for in Decision 310. These informal consultations have happened also in the time period since the third meeting. Let me take you to the next slide. Just to show you that document 418 concludes with a suggested action that puts forward some of the items. In some ways, it is a summary of the items in the table, of what decisions may still need to be taken or what work still needs to be completed for the first effectiveness evaluation elements all to be in place to begin and to conclude the first effectiveness evaluation. This includes also, of course, the work on the indicators and the work on the draft guidance. And if I can have the last slide. How will COP4 approach the discussions on effectiveness evaluation? I'd like to try to give a bit of clarity here to say that COP4.1 will open the documents. In other words, all the documents you see projected here on the left-hand side, document 418, the addenda, and the INF documents, these will be presented on the first day during plenary in November, the 1st of November. But furthermore, as there have been these party-led consultations, it also provides the opportunity for the Conference of the Parties to be informed of any other party views and or the party-led consultations, as well as these were further to the work that was mandated for the Secretariat to report on. At 4.2, all of these documents and any other information that the conference foresees it needs to have on effectiveness evaluation would be considered in depth, including all the intersessional work and any other party forwarded information or any other information from a party-led process. And that overall gives you an idea of these 3 important items under matters for consideration. That is agenda item 4. And may I just have the next slide and turn over to my colleague Lara to take us through this item. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia. I will introduce the last document for today. This document will be opened under item 7, dates of the resumed 4th meeting of the Conference of the Parties. This document 4/25, titled Dates of the Resumed 4th Meeting of the Conference of the Parties. The content of the meeting includes, as you have heard already, mention to the Bureau decision taken in April this year to convene the Conference of the Parties in 2 segments. An online segment to be held from 1st to 5th November 2021, and a second in-person segment to be held during the first quarter of 2022 in Bali, Indonesia. As mentioned already by my colleague Claudia, the dates of the in-person segment are subject to confirmation by a decision of the COP at its online segment in November this year. The government of Indonesia, who's the host of COP4, has informed us of its preparations to host the Resume meeting in Bali from 21st to 25th March 2022. Therefore, the online segment of the COP4 will be presented a draft decision on this matter. The last paragraph in particular, I would like to draw your attention to the last paragraph of the draft decision, where the COP is invited to decide to adjourn the fourth meeting of the COP and resume the meeting in an in-person format in Bali, Indonesia, and then the dates are to be agreed and decided by the COP. I'll stop here. Thank you very much and turn over back to Claudia. I'm available for any questions you may have. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lara. We have a bit of time for any clarifications or questions you might have. And looking through the chat, we see that a couple of documents, especially information documents, are still to be uploaded, but we see INF document 7 and 8, both of them relate to the GEF, although only one of them is really for COP4.1, should be visible to you now. It sometimes is a matter of synchronizing on our servers. So if you don't see it and you have been looking, it might sometimes be helpful to literally close the browser and open again in case your own system would need to refresh to see the most recent documents that have been uploaded. But by the end of today, we hope to have those documents all there for you. I see a question, and it's an important one, so thank you for asking it. I see a question about the guidance, which is a question regarding document 417. Thank you very much, Ms. Deng, for that question. The question goes, you could read it in the chat, but let me just repeat it here. Because in document 417 there is a suggested action included in that document, which includes, as you will see, some items in terms of some items we noticed as Secretariat, in terms of some of the questions, also some items parties noticed, either in answering the first 4 questions or in reviewing and commenting on the draft guidance. And so you will see some information there in terms of some suggestions of some items that need to be clarified by the COP, etc. But let me try to be as clear as possible. All of those items would only be for the resumed meeting. In other words, what we've begun to call COP4.2. For COP4.1, we simply want to bring this document to the attention of parties to be useful or to be of use during your preparation of the full reports. This is not at this time yet given the request by parties to keep the agenda slim and focused on the most important items that need to be discussed this year still. In an effort to be true to that request, that valid request by parties, we are only putting forward the draft guidance to the attention of the COP as the COP has requested the draft guidance, but not to deliberate specifically on the draft guidance or to consider the suggested action that is in the document. All of that, and also even the lessons learned once you have completed the full reporting format, would be very helpful to bring to the resumed segment so that any filing or any other matter that would need to be brought to the draft guidance can then be incorporated or included based also on the lessons that we will have learned after doing a full set of reports. I hope that makes that clear. In other words, in this famous elevator pitch for COP4.1, it's only to look at the guidance to help parties and to test out the guidance against their own experiences to complete the full national reports. But any other consideration of the guidance, please bring all of that with you to the resumed meeting so that we may put it all together so that the draft guidance, once the COP does decide to adopt it, is as best and helpful to all our parties. I hope that slightly long question has answered what was requested. Let me see if there is anything else. I see, thank you very much, Marjorie Gonzalez. I think that's from Colombia, about the clarification about the suggested action regarding the effectiveness evaluation in terms of COP4.1. Maybe, Shariful, if you could take us back to that slide, just to project it. Effectiveness evaluation and the suggested action. So yes, I think there we go. Thank you very much. I'd merely draw attention to this part in the document, not because we expect that this is going to be discussed in much or any detail at 4.1, but just to draw your attention to the fact that this is part of a document that is being opened at 4.1. There are a number of items of work that the COP will still need to complete for the full ability of the first effectiveness evaluation to be done. And this is a summary of sorts in terms of items that need to be concluded on by the end of COP4, or ideally some of them would have to be concluded on as soon as possible, so that the COP can be presented with the next step in the effectiveness evaluation. Having said that, this suggested action itself is not necessary to act upon at 4.1. The only reason that we have opened this document or this consideration at 4.1 is, and if I may have the next slide, Shariful, just one further, is that thank you, this is the one, thank you very much. Since there is work that was requested by the decision 313, that work has been done and is reflected in these documents that you see projected here. However, we have been informed, and I believe all regions have been informed, that there have also been further deliberations or discussions amongst parties about some of the matters that were not explicitly part of decision 313, but that are still matters that would need to also gain attention to complete the full work to put in place everything that is needed for the effectiveness evaluation. And since these consultations are not part of a Secretariat document to the COP, but since the COP may want to be informed of the deliberations and or any other party information that has come forward in the meantime, this agenda item is being opened for that information to be presented, so that then in the time between 4.1 and 4.2, parties will have as much information at their disposal as possible, that when they meet again for 4.2, they would have not only the documents prepared by the Secretariat, but also any other document that the COP may need to continue its work on effectiveness evaluation. And therefore, while I've projected a suggested action, it is merely a very soft suggested action from the Secretariat perspective that is just a summary overview of items that the COP would decide on, perhaps at COP4 or in another way as the COP sees fit. I hope that has given some clarity in this regard. And if I could move to the next one. I also see, thank you very much, Roger, for mentioning, of course, that internet connectivity is a very important matter. In fact, even as you can see, when we work from Geneva, at times we have an item that we need to deal with. So please, Roger, do know that we as a Secretariat are very aware of challenges that parties have and continue to experience. We are looking at a number of different lessons learned also from our colleagues, excuse me, that have had COPs already. And there are some ways that we could help? And I wonder if Sandra is back online to speak in this regard.
Yes, thank you, Claudia. I hope you can hear me well.
Please go ahead, Sandra.
Yes.
For the connectivity. Okay. I hope my connection will stay. So for the connectivity, of course, as Claudia mentioned, we're very well aware of the issues. So we'll do something similar as BS as well, and offer for those extra offer the connectivity cost reimbursed for the connectivity cost. So upon request we will.
Sandra, I'm afraid.
Also other options if really it's not possible to connect there in really exceptional cases and in people. Yes. I was saying, so whenever need, we will be reimbursing for connectivity costs. Thank you.
Thank you. I hope that was clear, but in a nutshell, we are trying to learn a number of lessons from some of the other meetings in terms of making some provisions. And what Sandra outlined very importantly is that for those that would need extra help for connectivity costs, there is a process available. And we urge you to please get in contact to make sure that you can have access to this process to try to help you on securing your connectivity for those 5 days now in November, so that you may be in a place and in a space to be able to participate fully in the meeting. So please get in touch with us if you would like to avail yourself to that. There are some conditions, as Sandra explained, but these are the same conditions around all of our MEAs, but we are very happy to let you know about how that can be accessed should you need that support. I also see a question on regional meetings, and if Lara could kindly take that one, please.
Sure. Thank you, Claudia. So I would like to inform you, and I've just shared the link in the chat, that information on regional preparatory meeting for COP4 is available on our COP4 webpage. I've sent you the link. In a nutshell, similar to the COP4, which will be convened in November online, the first online segment. Also, the regional preparatory meeting for the online segment will be organized online. The schedule of the meetings is presented on our webpage, on the COP4 webpage. The first regional meeting that will be organized online will be the Asia Pacific one on 27 September. The working language will be English only. And you can find the program for the meeting again on the convention's website. The next meeting will be for Africa on the 4th of October, where interpretation will be provided in French and English, followed by Latin America and the Caribbean on the 8th of October, where we'll have also interpretation in English and Spanish. And finally, the last regional preparatory meeting for the Eastern European states will be on the 11th of October. And here we'll have interpretation in English and Russian. Again, the programs for all these meetings is available on our convention's website, and the meetings with interpretation will be organized on the Interprefy online platform. For more information, you can always contact me. And again, please have a look at the website. So you can have I hope this answer your question. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We've come to 5 o'clock in Geneva here and much, much later in many other places. So we'd like to wrap it up now. If there's any other question that might come to you afterwards or even in the coming days, please just send it to us at the Secretariat mailbox and we try to get back to you as soon as possible. And thank you very much for also the questions. I think they are the most important ones in our preparation going forward. So just to say, we will have a repeat of this presentation tomorrow morning for those that need it in a much earlier time zone. And of course, all of this will also be available as recording. But please do look at our Minamata Online calendar for a number of other items. You will also there see all of the regional meetings and all the other meetings that relate to preparations of the COP. But may I also try to tickle you to consider also looking in the science stream, because tomorrow afternoon there will be a very interesting presentation, a set of presentations by practitioners and others on ASGM. It's one of our most important areas of work, of course. So if you have a moment, please also stop by that one. And with that, on behalf of all of my colleagues in the Secretariat, I thank you very much for your time to join us today, and do be in touch if we can be of any more help, and take care until the next time. Bye-bye.